Okay, and then how do I get to the internet? Maybe I should just cue that up so it's at the bottom of the screen. Probably just right there. Cool, I'll just log right in here.
Say your name and your affiliation. I'm Chris Monsieur, faculty member in Civil and Environmental Engineering. Welcome to the Friday Transportation Seminar at Portland State University, sponsored by the Center for Transportation Studies. My name is Chris Monsieur. I'm a faculty member in Civil and Environmental Engineering, and together with my colleagues in urban planning, Dr. John Glebe, Jennifer Dill, and my colleague in Civil and Environmental Engineering, Rob Bertini, we co-organize and host these seminars every Friday. So today we're pleased to have Brodie Hylton from Flexcar to give a presentation on Flexcar 101. So let's welcome Brodie.
All right, thanks, Chris. And I'm going to try to keep this as car sharing as I can, and less Flexcar. Well, we'll do both. But first, a little bit about myself. I've been with Flexcar for a little bit over a year now. My brief background: I used to work for the Portland Mercury newspaper. I went and got my MBA, University of Oregon. My undergrad was environmental studies and biology, and I got my MBA hoping to pursue a career in sort of market-based solutions to environmental and social problems, and that's how I ended up at Flexcar. So I've learned a lot in a year being here. So let's just start with sort of the basics about what car sharing is. How many people in here are Flexcar members? Got a couple. Cool. You should know that if you're a PSU employee and you don't own a parking permit and you're on the Flex Pass program, you get free use of Flexcar, by the way. Just my little pitch to you employees out there, and we have a student special as well. But what Flexcar, or what car sharing is essentially one big decentralized fleet that everyone shares. It's convenient. You access it yourself. You make reservations yourself. It's incremental. You only pay for what you use, and those rates include everything: gas, unlimited miles, insurance. And most importantly and relevantly probably to this group is that it's transformative. It reduces costs while retaining vehicle availability. When you couple car sharing with transit or other alternative modes of transportation, it's a very viable substitute to car ownership. It's very complementary to public transportation. And so what this allows people to do, or organizations to do, is downsize their fleet or their family fleet, their own personal car, and live car-free. And that's more in a personal sense. In an organizational sense, it allows businesses or organizations like the state of Oregon, the city of Portland, for example, two of our bigger customers, to downsize their fleets to meet average demand and then use Flexcar for overflow. So it's a money saver on a couple different fronts. And you can see the little quote down there by Susan Shaheen, who's sort of the industry, I guess, academic specialist on car sharing. She's at the University of California, Berkeley, and that's her quote about what car sharing is. By the way, I also brought just 5 copies of her latest study called Car Sharing in North America, Market Growth, Current Developments, and Future Potential. I just brought 5 copies, and I don't know if anybody's interested, but it's an academic paper, and it was the most recently published one that there is. Came out April 1st. So if anybody's interested, I don't know if I should pass this around or I'll just leave it here, and if you're interested, you can pick it up at the end. So here's what Flexcar is. Flexcar was founded in 1999 as a public-private partnership supported by King County, Washington, and the city of Seattle. It was a partnership with, what's the transit agency in Seattle called? Metro. Thank you, yes. In fact, car sharing started in North America in Portland in 1998 as Car Sharing Portland, and some of you any of you remember Car Sharing Portland from 98? Yeah. Started with a couple cars in southeast Portland, and we've grown to now we have over 130 cars in the city of Portland. So what happened is Flexcar started about a year later in Seattle, grew, ended up buying Car Sharing Portland, and has grown since then. As you can see, Flexcar's expanded to the cities you see there: Portland, LA, San Diego, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Atlanta. And then we also have a nonprofit partner in Chicago called iGo Car Sharing. We've won a bunch of awards for innovation and reducing congestion and so forth. The idea is, again, to save customers money and contribute to sustainable communities, which we feel strongly that we do that. And what we are now is a private for-profit company. And in August of last year, controlling interest was bought out by Revolution, LLC, which is a holding company that's owned by Steve Case, the founder of AOL. So that's why we have the fancy PowerPoint slides now. And we're part of a portfolio of companies for Revolution. They own a number of healthcare-related, healthy livings, lifestyle type of companies. So again, here's just a brief overview. We sort of covered this. Who uses Flexcar? Consumers at a neighborhood level. Commuters, people that are coming downtown, for example, on transit and need a car occasionally during the day to pick up a sick kid from school or go on a lunch meeting or whatever it may be. Businesses as overflow to a fleet or in place of reimbursing employee mileage. And then universities, PSU, really what we call our campus car program began here at PSU, and we now do this type of program on, I'd say, we've got to be well over a dozen universities around the country now. And the idea with what we call the Campus Car program is that, and it's something OHSU does as well in Portland, is that employees, and in the case of OHSU, students, are given free use of Flexcar during the day up to some number of hours. At PSU, it's 4 hours for employees. Free use during the day if they do not own a parking permit, if they can prove in some way that they get to work or school by public transportation or by bike, so that they have that safety net of feeling like if they need to get off campus, if they need a car, they have one. And what that does is it reduces congestion, it reduces parking demand, it's in line with sustainability initiatives, and that sort of thing. So here's how Flexcar works for those that don't know. You join online. You then get a key card in the mail that looks like a credit card. It is credit card sized. You go online or over the phone to reserve a car. You then pick that car up using that key card. You can see there on the slide, that's how you unlock the doors. You hold that over the card reader. That pops the locks. The keys are in the glove box. You start the car, you drive, and you bring it back in time for the next member's reservation. The vehicle will only let you in if you have an active reservation on that particular vehicle. Your member number is associated with your key card, and the only way that car will start is if you get into the vehicle using a key card. In other words, if someone were to smash the window, take the key from the glove box and try to start the car, it would not start. So it's pretty cool technology. I mean, that's what car sharing really is fundamentally all about, is technology. This we've covered. You can see here is just a sample of, this is actually a little bit outdated. We have more locations than that in the downtown core, but around PSU there are 12 vehicles, for example. And the idea with this network of vehicles is that while you may not be able to access the car closest to you, the one that you definitely want, that you should be able to find another vehicle close by in some, within a couple blocks walk of where you're located. We also have different types of cars. Hybrids. Most of our fleet in Portland is hybrids, and a third of our fleet in all of our markets are hybrids. Regular sedans, vans, pickup trucks, and SUVs. Honda Element is what we have here. We also have a compact car, Scion, that new Scion little hatchback. They're all very new. We basically get rid of them at 40,000 miles. We clean them, we maintain them, we keep them in top shape, and we hope and ask that our members do the same. Since this is car sharing, we ask that everybody sort of plays by the rules. What's included, again, in our rates is 24/7 roadside and on-call assistance. If you ever have an issue, you just call 1-877-FLEXCAR, and you deal with it. If you're running late, if you've got a flat tire, whatever the issue is, our 24-hour on-call service will help you out. The rates vary by the number of hours that an individual or an organization commits to in a month, between $7.20 and $9 an hour. Most individuals pay $9 an hour. PSU pays $7.20 an hour because we aggregate all that use of people on that PSU account. We have daily rates, which are essentially a function of the vehicle, and they're capped at either, we call them freedom designations, either Freedom 5, Freedom 7, or Freedom 10. And what that's indicating is that that's the cap on the number of hours in a day that you would ever be billed for. So on a Freedom 5 vehicle, you're paying $9 an hour. The daily rate's $45, which is a pretty good deal if you consider that you're getting your gas, your insurance, everything is included. So that's the way the rates work. This is just sort of a cue to remind me to jump on and just really show you the reservation system. This is just our web page, which again is very racy, and it didn't used to be as flash animated, but it looks pretty cool. So what you do is you join now. That's how you become a member. Once you become a member, you have a member number and a password, or a PIN number. And I'll just log in here and show you what it looks like. You log in, and that takes you into our reservation screen. There's just a few steps here. You can see that the driver would default to you. A lot of people have multiple accounts. I have a Flexcar Portland account, my business account, and also a personal account. So depending on the nature of my trip, I'm going to bill the trip either to my employer or to myself. So let's just do this here to Flexcar Portland. The trip date defaults to today. We find that about 60 to 75% of our reservations are made the same day someone needs a car. So if we were to look a week out, you'd see almost no reservations. If we look at today, a snapshot live of today, we'll see pretty full reservation system. And again, it's the dense network of vehicles is intended to account for that last second, the inability of people to really think about planning ahead for a car, and that's okay. That's the way the system's intended to be used. Then what we do is we pick a region, which is Portland, and a neighborhood. We're down here in the downtown South University District. There's 12 cars down here, like I mentioned. Actually, maybe 10 in this specific neighborhood, but there's 12 cars eligible for the free use by Portland State employees. But let's take a look here. And you leave the vehicle type at any for now. We're going to make it so that when you actually pick a vehicle type, it will show you that vehicle type. Currently, it's not as seamless. If you pick a truck, for example, and pick a neighborhood that doesn't have a truck, it will just show you no trucks instead of searching for all the trucks. But we're going to get there. That's the next iteration. You can see here, it just so happens that I'm logging in when somebody is actually looking at these cars. So it says cannot confirm somebody's looking at this. While you're looking at a given set of vehicles, you're the only one that's able to make a reservation at one time. So if we refresh this, you'll probably see that maybe it's still like that. But anyway, so you can see here, you just can scroll through 4 vehicles at a time. And what we're looking at here is a calendar day from midnight last night to midnight tonight, Friday, October 20th. You can see any time, this is noon right here. That's about what time it is. What time is it? 12:15. So you can reserve a car right now if you need one from noon on. We actually bill in half-hour increments. Anything in the past is grayed out and unavailable. Anything in the future is potentially available or reserved by someone else. So you can see that in this situation, the top car, Southwest 5th and Harrison, has reservation till 4. The other 2 down there have reservations from 12:30 till whatever, 4 or 4:30. Here's the daily rate calculators I was talking about. And then you can see that the little black icon looks like the type of car it is. This is that little Scion hatchback. This is a minivan, and these are sedans. So that's really what it looks like. You decide when you want a car. If there isn't a vehicle there, you can click 4 more, and it'll show you. You can click on any of these links. It'll tell you very detailed, great level of detail about the car, its location, etc. So let's say I want this Southwest Broadway and Jackson vehicle from today from 2 to 4. You just click and drag, click reserve. You see it comes up blue, and then that's it. It spits out your confirmation page and it's done. I show up to that car at 2. Only I will be able to get into that car using my key card. And you can see on this confirmation page, it tells you all kinds of detail. It shows you who the driver is, the times, the date. The location, and getting there is right here is a very detailed description of where it is. This vehicle is in the first on-street space north of Jackson on the west side of Southwest Broadway. And then down here, if we scroll down, it's a map. It tells you where the nearest gas station is. We pay for the gas, but we ask that our members gas up the tank. Should it fall below a quarter tank, we ask that the member fills it. There's a gas card in every car. And so that's really all there is to it. In terms of making reservations. You can see some other stuff here, like My Reservations shows you things like this, and I don't want this reservation, so I'm just going to log in here and cancel it. And there's no charge if I cancel within an hour of making it. So that's really it. So some of the public benefits we talked about. Transportation mode shift. A lot of people shift their trips when they become Flexcar members to riding the bus a lot more. They carpool more, they walk more, they bike more. So they live healthier lifestyles. They reduce their vehicle miles traveled by an average of 67%. And there's been a few studies done. There was a very big study done back in November of last year by the Transportation Research Board. It was an FTA-funded study on car sharing, and it outlined a number of different statistics, quantifiable statistics, like this one. It reduces parking demand. Another number that they came up with was each car share vehicle on the road replaces 15 private cars, removes 15 private cars from the road. So there you go. We're helping to achieve congestion, air quality, and parking constraints as well. Many members downsize, buy a car. Others live car-free. I certainly do. So does Nolan back there, and any of you that are Flexcar members in the room probably find that your use for a car, your own car, has seriously diminished if you have one. Reduced emissions is another big thing that we achieve. Our vehicles are new. They're fuel efficient. Like I said, hybrids, low emission vehicles. And we're a CO2 emissions neutral company. So not only are our cars fuel efficient and are people using our cars driving less, and we're taking cars off the road, but we're offsetting all of the CO2 that our cars emit with a partnership through American Forests. So we basically right now are planting trees to offset any CO2 that our cars put out. We're exploring different creative partnerships on the CO2 neutrality front. There's many other ways to offset your carbon dioxide emissions that are probably more effective than planting trees. The Climate Trust has a lot of innovative programs. So we're exploring other partnerships right now in terms of in different ways to achieve that goal of being CO2 emissions neutral. Economic benefits is something that's oftentimes overlooked, I think, when we talk about car sharing. But because it's one of the things is it's reducing costs of car ownership for members. It's also providing access to vehicles for a whole community. It's allowing low-income individuals, for example, that can't perhaps afford to own a car, have access to vehicles. And also, if you've got people that live car-free and are living in walkable, transit-oriented communities, they're probably shopping local, which means they're supporting local business, which is a great thing as well, especially in this town. It's a very grassroots, mom-and-pop sort of town, and that's what keeps Portland. So here's just some general issues to consider. And I should have said this at the beginning, but if anybody has questions, just feel free to raise your hand and cut me off. But this is just something I came up with very quickly to consider about car sharing and Flexcar as we move into the future. One thing is pricing. How can Flexcar really add value to what it's providing, but still grow our business? We're owned, as I mentioned, by Steve Case, and he's not owning it just to do good in the world. He wants to make a buck. So one thing to consider is how can we do that, and we're exploring different ways that we can price our service based on time of day, type of vehicle, etc. Right now it's just based on, it's almost arbitrary. Sometimes you can get a Honda Element for $45 a day. Well, that doesn't necessarily make sense when it's not fuel efficient. It's an expensive car to own and manage. So we're looking at different ways to price the service, yet still make it affordable for people that need it at different times of day. But basically, where you have high demand, the price is going to be higher. Expansion growth, something to think about is how will car sharing evolve? Where will it go? Where will it be next? Car sharing, Flexcar is mostly on the West Coast, but there's many nonprofits. Like one is in Minneapolis. There's one in Cleveland. There's one in Austin, Texas. There's one in Vancouver, BC. The other big for-profit is Zipcar, and they're primarily on the East Coast. And we go head-to-head with Zipcar in San Francisco and Washington, D.C. So it's a very competitive markets for us. And then think about untapped cities and what it's going to take to bring car sharing to those cities. And then how can we grow in current regions like Portland? Does it make sense to be in Beaverton? Does it make sense to be in Gresham? Does it make sense to be in Sherwood? If so, why? If not, why not? And then how can we split out car sharing and drop it into functional silos, not necessarily geographic regions, but industries? Like, how can car sharing work in retirement communities or universities? And what different ways can we aggregate use onto vehicles in one of these, what I call silos, like a university? Well, we've got the transportation demand management thing where if people don't drive, they get free use. Well, we could also get use from departmental use that maybe downsize their fleet and use Flexcar for business use. Then, of course, there's student use. One thing that we're exploring is dropping our minimum age from 21 to 18 and making it a complete campus solution. And car sharing has network effects in that the more users you have, the more cars you can have, the better it's going to work for everyone. And then hotels, one thing that, and this really segues nicely into the technology. Right now it takes about 5 to 7 business days to become a Flexcar member. with hotels, how can we help educate the public to arrive at an airport, take the MAX downtown, or even take a cab in another city? Instead of renting a car, paying $35 a day to park it in the garage because you need it once to go to a meeting or to visit grandma when you're staying for 5 days, that's not very cost-effective or efficient use of a vehicle. Instead, how can we partner with hotels so that they can help us sign up Flexcar members so that they can have access to the cars just when they need it? And how can Flexcar members use our services in other cities? And then, so technology and innovation. How can we sign people up quicker? That's one thing. We're paying for the insurance, so we do the insurance screen. Is there a way to do that faster? Our technology, your cars. We're taking 15 cars off the road, but we're putting one on. Maybe it makes more sense to take the existing cars. If you go out here, you see cars parked all over the place. Maybe it makes more sense to put our technology into the cars that are already out there. And maybe it makes more sense to put our technology into the city of Portland's fleet cars rather than saying, sell your fleet cars and use our cars. So maybe really the technology is what it's about, not this hybrid Civics that we put our technology in. And then one-way trips. That's something everybody would like to figure out how to do. How can we make it possible to take a car and park it somewhere else? That's way down the road. We haven't come close to figuring out how to do that, but obviously if there was a way to figure that out, if we had enough vehicles on the road, certainly something that is possible. And then maybe for most of you, the most interesting thing might be the policy level stuff. I'm just going to go to the third bullet. First, federal and state funding. There's a lot of grant dollars available that can help support car sharing. For low-income individuals, there's JARC, Job Access Reverse Commute, that basically subsidizes low-income individuals and allows them to get to job interviews and that kind of thing. There's CMAQ, Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality dollars that are available too. So if you can come up with an innovative program that shows that you are reducing congestion and improving air quality, then you can tap into some of those funds. And then, of course, in Oregon, there's the Business Energy Tax Credit. And so Flexcar finds creative ways to leverage these different types of grant dollars that are available to help us grow our program and expand it to places like Beaverton, like I was saying. Well, suburban car sharing's never been tried, and if you can show the government that you've got an innovative idea, they might help subsidize that. One thing that's a big deal in Portland is meter revenue recapture. The city, up until now, has given us parking spaces on street. They've believed that we're complementing many of the goals they're trying to achieve: sustainability initiatives, transit ridership, reducing congestion, improving air quality, all those kind of things. And so they have given us dedicated parking spaces downtown. Well, now, 6 months ago or so, there was a vote in City Council, and they decided that they need to start charging Flexcar for the spaces downtown. And really, how much sense does that make? Is there a way to quantify these benefits that we've talked about and sort of put that into dollars and cents and say, well, look, Portland, here's really what goals you're trying to achieve, and here's a way to think about quantifying those goals, and here's the benefits you're getting from car sharing on street. Think about that before you're charging Flexcar X number of thousands of dollars a year, and we estimate that they're going to ask for somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 a year, which alone for a small company that's truthfully not profitable is a big hit. When you're talking about a city that $30,000 to $60,000 is a drop in the bucket, relatively speaking. So is there a way to quantify all of these goals we're helping the city to achieve? Furthermore, because the city of Portland is such a pioneering city with respect to car sharing and so many other things, urban planning, transit, other cities are looking to Portland to see how they're dealing with this car sharing issue. And if the city is starting to implement charges for the on-street spaces, other cities might look to that and model themselves in that same way, which could essentially run car sharing, into the ground if the meter recapture effort is too high. So that's an important issue here locally. And then developer incentives. Developers get lead points for incorporating car share vehicles into their developments and hybrid vehicles into their developments. There's also a tax exemption for developers that incorporate car sharing spaces into their developments in transit-oriented development areas around max stops and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of policy that's built into car sharing. It's such an emerging industry, and it works hand in glove with transit and cities. So there's a lot of opportunity there as well. And then that's for maybe for you guys to figure out. I'm not sure what else there could be. There's lots though. So really, I know it's only 12:30, but that's all. It's all I've got. Do you guys have any questions or? Yeah.
Couldn't all the businesses sort of share, like all the private businesses that are I'm so sorry. Couldn't all the private businesses downtown that would like to share in the car sharing spaces being allotted for them within downtown sort of share that cost, thereby sort of averting the city's need to pay for those places?
Yeah, I mean, conceivably they could. However, that's just one more cost that we're putting on the customer that makes us less competitive when they look at reimbursing mileage or renting a car. And, you know, parking and roads and driving cars shouldn't really be subsidized. Parking shouldn't be free. What should be instead offered free is transit passes and subsidizing alternative modes, not subsidizing cars. If you want to contribute to congestion and you want to contribute to, you know, lower qualities of air or whatever, then there should be a tax built into that. And to the extent that we're helping to achieve these goals, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense to charge the businesses. And so many businesses just do a strict cost comparison. You know, it's great to have all these, you know, other goals being met about, you know, oh, we're helping to anchor a network of car share vehicles. We're helping to achieve all these other things. Well, ultimately, a business is looking at the bottom line. And if we're not competitive in a price sense, then they're not going to sign up. And if we say, yeah, it's $9 an hour plus $20 a month to park, well, part of the benefit is the parking's included. You get downtown on the bus, you never have to worry about parking.
I guess I was thinking more in the fact of the business seeking to promote healthier, more sustainable communities would have that sort of on their lapel as we are a earth-friendly kind of a business, and that's why people would choose to buy from that company more often, and that's why I think that maybe businesses would be more responsive to choosing that.
Right.
To incorporate.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly now businesses sign up for Flexcar and really do play that PR angle a little bit. But, you know, if that's the case, you know, why should, I mean, you make a good point, but ultimately it comes down to the bottom line, and PR can only get you so far. And if the city's willing to, I mean, really, if it's helping to achieve citywide goals, maybe that's something that the city, with its much larger budget than a lot of small companies that we have signed up, could really help with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Flexcar gets rid of the cars at 40,000 miles, and I was just wondering why that is.
Essentially because the warranty is up, and because there's so many users on the vehicles. Once the warranty expires, you know, there's a lot of grind and wear and tear on these cars, and it becomes expensive after that. Also because we want to have a nice service. We don't want people getting in a junky car. One of our value propositions is that, hey, you've got a fleet of 1984, you know, Chevy Cavaliers. Well, why don't you jump into a new Honda Civic Hybrid? Yeah.
What's your regular demand, like maybe per day or per month? And do you ever have situations where there's more demand than what you can supply?
Good questions. Our vehicles average about, right now in Portland, around 4.5 hours of utilization per day. And really, that's something that I didn't explain, is that that's how we're able to save people money, is that we aggregate so much use onto our vehicles. Most cars are parked 95% of the time. You know, they get used an hour or two a day. But our cars are used 5 or 6 hours a day. So therein lies the opportunity to save money for the consumer and the opportunity to make money for Flexcar. And what was the second part of your question?
Do you have situations where there's more demand than supply?
Right, and then essentially what we do is we add cars to meet demand. So, you know, there may be a situation where you'll get on at lunchtime and try to reserve a car at the last second, and there isn't one available in your neighborhood. If that situation recurs, we monitor that, and we add vehicles to meet to meet demand. And as our vehicles exceed 6 hours of utilization per day, we begin to add cars to a given neighborhood. So while I say our average usage per day right now is about 4.5 hours, our goal is 6 hours. And some of our cars do get 6, 8, 10 hours a day. Some get 1 to 2, More of our outlying St. John's, East Portland locations are lower, and our downtown locations are higher. And so it's a constant shuffle to meet demand. Yeah. Yeah.
What are the real differences between the Flexcar and the car rental agencies, and how do you guys kind of stay competitive against them?
Nolan, would you like to answer that question? I mean, Nolan deals with this question a lot. Nolan deals primarily with downtown businesses, and he gets that question a lot. And it's tough. I mean, when you look at an all-day, using a car for all day, we really aren't necessarily cost competitive, depending on, I guess, a number of factors. Does the business have insurance? Probably. Or does the individual have insurance? If they do, then that's one thing going for them. We pay for gas, we pay for insurance. Those are the two primary differences. So if you're going on a long trip, or you need a car less than a full day, or you don't own insurance because you don't own a car, then we're going to be cheaper. The other value that we provide is it's all self-service and automated. You jump on, you reserve the car you need, you show up to it, you go. You don't have to go to Enterprise, fill out the paperwork, bring it back fully gassed up, and if you don't, it's a $40 fine. It's easier, I guess. But when you look at it, straight numbers, all day in a car rental car versus all day in a flex car, and you're not going that far, and you're insured. It's in an all-day situation or a multi-day situation, car rental period is probably going to be a little bit cheaper.
Can we rent a car for more than 1 day?
Yes, you can rent a car as long as you want. You can up to from a half hour to as long as you want, and you can take it wherever you want. There's no limitations on anything like that. Yeah.
How are the freedom levels determined? You had mentioned that right now you're not necessarily pricing the van the same as the Scion, but I noticed the freedom levels were different prices, so I wondered how that's based.
Right. Arbitrarily right now, almost. I mean, we're not very strategic about it, but it's intended to drive utilization to underutilized locations. So you'll see that more of the Freedom 5s and 7s are outside of the downtown core and newer locations because they're underutilized. What we're trying to say is take this car all day, use it, get used to the location. It's here, it's cheap. Whereas with our downtown locations and more heavily utilized locations, we put that daily rate higher because we're trying to encourage shorter trips, multiple users, shorter trips. And so that's the idea with that. Yeah.
Well, last week we had someone from Sequential Biofuels come and talk to us, and you talked about partnerships, and I'm wondering, have you considered, getting diesel vehicles and using biodiesel? Yeah.
I mean, that would be a great partnership. The challenge, though, is that the biodiesel pump fuel infrastructure isn't built out. And we have a wide range of members, from the very environmentally aware, biodiesel supporting, progressive member to just somebody whose business signs up and this is how they've dictated that they have to get around, so that's what you're going to use. And with such a wide variety of members, we can't expect that the person on this end of the spectrum that's really just using it because they have to is going to be able to figure out how to find the nearest biodiesel station. And think about the opportunity for error. Somebody doesn't know, they put unleaded in the vehicle, and it's a biodiesel car. But we certainly do talk about, as biodiesel becomes more mainstream and the infrastructure is more built out, that we'd certainly like to find a way to have at least a couple of cars powered by biodiesel. That's a very good idea, yeah. Yeah.
Do you know if the city of Portland recaptures any revenue for truck loading zones?
I don't know. No? No fee for those spots, yeah. Okay. Yeah, in the green back there.
I was wondering how you deal with the differences in insurance costs between drivers, because some drivers are more costly versus others, and I also just wanted to know what segments, what cities you're seeing the largest use in.
Sure. Basically, to become a member, you have to pass our insurance screen, and if you don't meet the minimum criteria, which is like you can't have more than 2 minor violations in the last 3 years, no major violations in the last 5 years, there's a minimum threshold, And so if you don't meet that minimum threshold, you simply can't be a member. So that helps to keep our insurance rates low enough anyway. So I hope that answers that question. And then the second question about, I'm sorry, say it again.
I was just wondering exactly which cities you're seeing the most utilization of the cars and which are like the hottest markets right now for Flexcar.
Right. Right now, the hottest markets are Seattle and Portland and Washington, D.C. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that they're our oldest, most established markets. We have the most vehicles there. The other is because they're very transit-oriented markets as well. They're very well served by transit. It makes it easy to live car-free. We entered the San Francisco market only a year ago, less than a year ago, 10 months ago maybe, or 8 months even. And so we're seeing lots of growth in San Francisco, as you can imagine, because it's very dense, it's very expensive to park, it's very walkable, it's very well served by transit. So when you think about really what are the ideal locations for car sharing, it's New York, it's San Francisco, it's Chicago, places like that. Also Portland for a couple reasons, because it is so well served by transit, relatively speaking, and also because we find that people in Portland get it. You know, it's a more of a progressive mindset in Portland than you might find in Houston, or for example, or whatever. So I think that plays a role too. Is really what's the psychographics of the population, I guess. Yeah, right.
What's the experience been in the cities where you're competing with Zipcar? I mean, have you had serious challenges there? It seems like this ought to be a natural monopoly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have had challenges there. I mean, I don't really know any way else to put it, but it's a competitive environment. Obviously, it would be our preference not to go head up with them at this early stage, but I think there is opportunities as car sharing becomes more mainstream to be competitive. And you see that, like I said, we're competitive in D.C. and we're competitive in San Francisco, two very car sharing conducive environments. There's a lot of untapped markets out there that have great potential. Pittsburgh, Denver, lots of places. Even Houston is actually not even a bad one. And so I think you're going to see probably a race to capture markets that are unserved before you're going to see Zipcar come to Portland, but that's just my own thought, and I could be completely wrong on that. Yeah?
So is Flexcar seeking to expand to a place something like Denver?
We're seeking to expand to cities that are willing and interested in having car sharing come. It certainly takes some initiative on the city's part.
I know they have substantial public transportation as well as sort of a very environmentally focused community. Yeah. That's why I was wondering.
Yes, and they've expressed interest, and so I think car sharing will be in a place like Denver. And ultimately, what it takes really to get car sharing into any city is committed use. Is the city or is some large organization or institution or a group of them saying, yeah, we'll pay for some amount of use on that, and then the car sharing organization then hopes to earn additional revenue through co-marketing with the city and promoting the availability of vehicles and educating the public about how this will help them save money and help the environment and complement all these citywide goals and that kind of thing. But in terms of a specific strategy, I work in Portland, so they don't tell me that. Yeah, Chris.
We got a few questions from the web. So one of them has Flexcar considered working with TriMet to be integrated into their trip planner? And
we would love that. Is anyone from TriMet in the room? We've had many conversations with TriMet, and unfortunately, they're not as motivated to include Flexcar as a complementary service as King County Metro is. And that's something that we certainly wish that TriMet were more able to do. And for whatever reason, they're not at this point.
I have a question. What happens if somebody's late returning the car?
If you're running late, we ask that if you can call the 877 Flexcar number with about half-hour notice, advance notice. You can easily extend by phone. When you call, you enter your member number and your PIN, and you can extend your reservation by phone. And so long as nobody has a reservation after you, it will allow you to extend. If somebody does have a reservation after you, the automated voice will say, I'm sorry, somebody has this vehicle, either return it on time or press 2 to be connected with our call center. You get connected with the call center, you let them know the situation, I can't have it back, I'm stuck in traffic. And then what they'll do is contact one of us. There's always somebody on call 24/7. I have that joy every Tuesday night. So if you're a Flexcar member and you call the call center and you get patched through to Portland, that's me. And on Tuesdays. What's that? It depends on what time, I guess, you call. But and what we do then is we work with you and you say, well, can you get it back or not? And if not, we get into our system, we figure out who has the next reservation. Hopefully that person that has the next reservation has provided us with all of their contact information so that we can reach them. We call them, say, sorry, but the car isn't going to be back on time. Again, the idea with the density of the network is that we can usually work with the member to say, well, there's another car 2 blocks away that's available. Do you mind using that one? And that's what we do. But there are a series of, there are fines. If you don't notify, if the first thing we hear is you standing on the curb wondering where your car is and you have a reservation and we weren't notified, then the member that inconvenienced you is going to pay to get to make the situation right, whether that means giving you some free hours of use on a second car that we put you in, or getting you a cab because you simply need to go now, they're going to pay for the cab. So, once you don't let us know once that you were late and you inconvenienced a member, that's usually the last time because it can get expensive. Yeah.
I saw that you had Atlanta as a city that you're in the market right now. How many cars do you have there, and how long has the service been there?
I don't know exactly how many cars we have there. I'd say maybe 20. We just launched there, and we've only been live there just a couple of months. And what really spurred our our expansion to Atlanta is that we have a partnership with a parking company there, and they basically own a lot of downtown parking garages, and they understand how this is basically going to help the city and help reduce congestion and all of this. And so they're going to help us with parking spaces. And then we've also partnered with Emory University out there as well, so they provided a good amount of use. So between the partnership with the parking company that controls basically all the downtown parking and the university, we feel that that's enough of a foothold to help us grow from there. Yeah.
At what point does Flexcar predict profitability?
Well, it depends. Well, it depends on the market. Portland's very close, and Seattle is as well. And in fact, we've sort of gotten over the hump a couple times. But at what point it predicts profitability is probably less relevant than what point we actually achieve profitability. I'd say that it's predicted to happen within the next 3 years. Probably, if the CEO was here, he'd probably tell you this year. But it's definitely a growing industry, and because we have this new investment and we have people in place to really figure out how to massage the business model to propel it more quickly towards profitability, I think we're on a very good trajectory right now to get there within 3 years easily, I'd say. And of course, it depends too on how quickly you're adding markets, because do you really focus on a growth strategy where you're becoming profitable and you add a new market? There's certainly a cost there. It's going to slow you down or even dip you, cost you money at the outset. So it's a function of really how quickly do you add new markets, or do you focus on growth or do you focus on profitability? And as our CEO says, yes. So I don't know.
How is Flexcar planning on coping with the added cost of paying for parking downtown?
How are we coping with it? We're hoping that the city will see the benefits of what we're helping the city to achieve, what goals we're helping the city to achieve. They haven't ultimately decided on what that dollar amount will be yet, and they've also agreed to, I think, if I'm correct, look at every year review what they're charging us and readjust it. But again, because we are a very small company, and really each market is run like its own company. It's sort of like its own franchise, if you will. So when you look at it, there's 6 employees at Flexcar Portland. I mean, we're a small company, and the margins aren't very high. It's expensive to operate these cars and park them and maintain them and all of that. So, it would be a big hit to us. So our hope is that they'll reduce it. Yes?
I think you said that you were hoping to get service to be able to use it in different cities. What's the prospect for that? And is it true that if you're a member here, you can't use it in Seattle?
No, I may have misspoke. You can use, once you're a Flexcar member, you can drive in any of the markets that we have vehicles. I think when I said that, I was talking about hotels. And I guess what I was saying is that maybe you get a traveler from Portland or whatever to go to Seattle, and they happen to stay downtown, and they happen to be staying in a hotel that is a partner of ours, and they have a Flexcar available near their offices, and so you can get signed up instantly. You use the car in Seattle, you realize, hey, this is pretty cool, and then when you come back to Portland, you've sort of already you're in the habit, and you can adopt it when you come back to Portland. And that's another reason that we're interested in universities as well, whether it's in Portland or whether it's in places like Eugene, Corvallis, places that are outside of where we currently operate, is because we're really helping to educate people about thinking about the way they use a vehicle.
If I'm a Flexcar member here, I can go to Seattle and use it the same way. Go on the computer and use a car and go. Okay.
Yes.
Another web question. So, if the car's stolen or in an accident, what charges are for the members?
Well, if the car's stolen, I would assume that there isn't really any member responsibility. But if you're in an accident, well, our deductible is $500. If you're at fault, the insurance deductible is $500. If you tell us, if you go out and wreck the car and back into a pole or something and wreck the car and then park it and don't tell us, but we trace it back to you, then the deductible is $1,000. So it pays to be honest, I guess. Yeah.
Sort of on what Hannah's question was, how are you coping with rising gas prices? Because I was in Seattle when you started there, and it doesn't seem like the price to reserve a car has really gone, or per hour has really gone up, but gas prices have tripled since that time. Very good point. Our rates haven't increased in, I'd say, a couple of years at least, and in that time, gas prices have risen. They've probably close to tripled. They've more than doubled. And one thing is that we are going to adjust for that soon, unfortunately. But the other thing is that when you look at the total cost of owning a car, and you think about the insurance cost and the maintenance cost and the payment on your car and the depreciation of your car and all of the things that make up a cost to own a car, the gas is actually a very small percentage, but because that's the variable cost that people think about when they own a car, really all it costs me is, $30 every 2 weeks to fill it up, and so it's cheap. So you really don't think about what those other costs are. But AAA estimates that it costs somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000 per year to own a car. And that's just thinking about an average car, like a 2000 Ford Taurus, your average car. That's what it costs depending on the city. I think Detroit is the most expensive city to own a car. And San Francisco's up there, New York is up there, and parking is a cost, obviously, in a lot of these places. But depending on where you're at, between $7,000 and $9,000 per year, that's expensive. If you're a car share member, if you use 25 hours a month, which is heavy use for a car sharer because, again, you've transitioned so much of your use to public transportation, carpooling, biking, walking, that cost at 25 hours a month as a heavy user is $200. So times 12, that's $2,400. Is my math right? Yeah, $2,400 a year, which is significantly lower. So it's a huge money saver at this point. Yeah. Yes?
What's your typical user profile? Do they tend to be more the university or businesses you have partnerships with, or the individual users throughout the week?
It depends on the market. It depends on the region. Portland is about 60% individual, 40% business user. Seattle's roughly the same. Washington, D.C., on the other hand, is about 90% personal and 10% business. And I think a lot of that has to do with the local sales effort and really how the program is marketed. And really maybe in D.C. we haven't figured out how to communicate how this is going to benefit businesses. And in fact, if you look at this car sharing study that I brought, you're going to see there's a pie chart that sort of says car sharing in North America, of all the nonprofits, for-profits, all the operations there are out there, about somewhere around 90% is made up personal, and the rest is business and institutional, whatever. It's a very small slice of the pie, And you can see that in Portland, in a more mature market, that there's a lot more potential for business institutional sort of fleet overflow style use. Any more questions? One more? Last one?
Could you talk about developer incentives, like some successful projects where you've managed to negotiate Flexcars with a new development?
Sure. We have a great partnership with Girding Edelin Development in town. We incorporate Flexcars into most of their developments. They do like the Meriwether and South Waterfront's a new one. They're doing the Civic here, which is up on Burnside and 18th by PGE Park. And they did the Armory, the new Portland Artists Repertory Theater, I think it is. Center Stage, yeah. And they help their clients achieve LEED status, and also they want to offer Flexcar as a tenant amenity. So a lot of times they will help sponsor or subsidize the vehicle until it achieves full utilization. They'll help subsidize it, establish that location, and then as we see usage increase, then they're off the hook from subsidy. We also have a developer, just sort of on a one-off basis in St. John's, who built some condos called the Matthew Frank condominiums in St. John's, and he does the same thing. He basically subsidizes that Flexcar and offers it as a amenity to the purchasers of his condos. And the idea with all of these situations is that there's less parking spaces than there are units, and so he's helping to offset that, and provide this and encourage people to not have to own a car there.
Okay, before we thank Brodie, I'd like to make an announcement for next week. We have Alan Pizarski, a very respected speaker, to talk about the end of commuting. He's the speaker sponsored by the Oregon Transportation Research Education Consortium Visiting Scholar Program. So OTREC is the University Transportation Center on the PSU campus. So with that and that reminder, I'd like to thank Brodie for making the presentation.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
I don't know everybody's name, so if you ask a question, make sure I mark it down.
Sure.
I'm really interested in specifically kind of this field, I guess, and I don't know what angle I can sort of come at it from. But
Well, what are you studying, or what's
economics.
Oh, really?
Better than a term, yeah. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like
That's some angle I'm interested about
a bit
as well.
obtuse for what I really feel like I need to focus on, I guess.
Right.
But
Well, I mean, one thing that we're very interested in is figuring out ways to quantify the benefits and put that into some maybe dollar format to say, here's what